This young self-made black woman finally earns the keys to a luxury penthouse, a place she's dreamed of her whole life. But when she walks through those glass doors, she's told 5 words that change everything. People like you don't live in penthouses. What happens next exposes more than prejudice. It uncovers a truth powerful enough to burn an empire. The marble lobby smelled like money, the kind that whispers and watches. Every heel click echoed across the glass walls as Amira Brooks rolled her suitcase toward the front desk. Her reflection in the floor looked too confident for someone like her. At least, that's what they'd soon say. Checking in? The concierge asked without looking up. His tone was polite, but thin, like it had somewhere else to be. Amira smiled. Moving in, actually. Penthouse 47B. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, have you ever been judged before people even knew your story? Because this one will make you feel every moment of it. Moving in, actually. Penthouse 47B. Amira smiled. That made him look up. Then the smile froze. His eyes blinked twice, like maybe she'd misspoken. Penthouse 47B. She nodded. Lease should already be processed under my name. Brooks. Amira Brooks. Behind the desk, another man leaned closer to read the computer screen. His brow furrowed. You're saying you're the tenant? The pause stretched too long. Conversations in the lobby slowed. A couple waiting for the elevator looked over. Yes, she said again, softer this time. I'm the tenant. He finally spoke. 5 words that would burn into her memory. People like you don't live in penthouses. The room went still. Even the air conditioning seemed to hold its breath. For a second, Amira thought she'd misheard. Then she saw the smirk, that tiny twist of the mouth that always came before an insult someone believed was just a misunderstanding. I'm sorry, she asked. The man cleared his throat. Look, there's clearly been some sort of mix-up. These units start at 2 million. They're not rentals. They are, she said firmly, sliding her folder across the counter. Lease agreement, deposit confirmation, and ID. He didn't touch it. He just looked at her, her brown skin, her curly hair pinned neat for her first day off in months. Behind him, the security guard adjusted his belt. I think you should step aside while we confirm, the concierge said, voice now sharp. She forced a breath. Confirm what? That you're supposed to be here. A woman stepped out of the elevator. Blonde bob, red blazer, the look of old Atlanta money. Is something wrong? She asked, eyes flicking from Amira to the guard. The concierge lowered his voice, but not enough. She's claiming to be the new tenant for 47B. The woman's gaze hardened. There must be some mistake. That unit belongs to Mr. Vale's firm. Amira froze. Vale. Daniel Vale, her former boss. The man who'd stolen her designs and nearly destroyed her career. The irony stung. Before she could answer, the guard stepped forward. I'm gonna need you to wait outside while we... The elevator dinged again. A young woman in a beige trench coat rushed out, phone in one hand, keycard in the other. Wait, she called. That's her. It was Jenna, Amira's assistant. She was breathless, her face flushed with urgency. She held up a sleek black folder. I have the keys. They were delivered this morning directly from Henderson and Vale's legal department. The entire lobby turned. Jenna handed over the documents. Miss Brooks is the legal owner of Penthouse 47B. As of last week. The concierge hesitated, scrolling rapidly. The woman in the red blazer frowned, whispering something under her breath. Amira stood tall. She didn't flinch. Not this time. When the concierge finally looked back up, his face had changed, the color drained. He muttered something about system updates and miscommunication. Looks like everything's in order, he said quietly. Of course it is, Jenna snapped. You just accused a black woman of trespassing in her own home. Murmurs rippled through the lobby. A delivery guy by the door nodded under his breath. Someone else recorded on their phone. Amira took the keys slowly, feeling the cold metal in her palm. She wanted to say something. Something powerful, cinematic, the kind of line people would quote later. But all that came out was a whisper. I built this building. Her voice trembled, but her words didn't. The guard stepped back, guilt clouding his face. The woman in red pretended to check her phone. Jenna reached for Amira's bag, helping her toward the elevator. Let's go home, Jenna said softly. They stepped inside. The elevator doors began to close, but not before the concierge called out one last thing. Amira turned. He held up a sheet of paper. There's a note on your account. From Mr. Vale. Her stomach dropped. What kind of note? He hesitated, then read aloud, pending ownership investigation. Unit not to be occupied until verification. Jenna's eyes widened. He's still trying to control you. The elevator doors slid shut before Amira could respond. Her reflection in the mirrored wall stared back. Tired, furious, unbroken. What's he doing, Jenna? She whispered. Jenna's voice was low, almost scared. Whatever it is, it's not over. The elevator chimed. The numbers climbed. 47 floors. One heartbeat pounding louder with each. When the doors opened, the penthouse was dark, too dark. A single envelope sat on the marble floor just beyond the threshold. Her name was written across it, in Daniel Vale's handwriting. And that's when the lights flickered. The letter from Daniel Vale's handwriting sat untouched on the floor. Amira couldn't move. The penthouse lights flickered once more, and for a moment, the marble beneath her seemed to melt into old linoleum. The scent of polished stone faded, replaced by the smell of bleach and fried okra. She was back on the south side. The apartment was small, walls the color of faded mustard, with one window that barely closed. Her mother, Lydia Brooks, was bent over a bucket, scrubbing the kitchen floor after her double shift. Sweat shined on her forehead. The sound of her gospel radio filled the air, low but steady. We've come this far by faith. Ma, you don't gotta clean. Mrs. Turner's not coming tonight, 12-year-old Amira said, pencil in hand, hunched over a sketchbook on the coffee table. Lydia chuckled. I don't clean for her. I clean for peace. Dirt makes me feel poor. Amira drew in silence, eyes narrowing at the crooked lines on her paper. She was trying to draw a house, one that didn't lean, didn't creak, didn't smell like rust and rain. A house with glass walls, tall ceilings, and a view of the city skyline. Her mother peered over. What you drawing now, baby? Our house, Amira said proudly. One day, I'll build you one. You won't even have to work no more. Lydia smiled, soft, tired, and a little sad. You already building me one, every time you dream. The radio crackled. The ceiling fan groaned. Outside, a siren wailed down Campbellton Road. Later that week, Lydia took Amira along to Buckhead, to the mansion where she cleaned. The contrast was dizzying. The floors gleamed, the walls smelled like lemon oil and power. A little blonde girl about Amira's age sat at a baby grand piano, playing notes that sparkled through the air. Amira whispered, she gets paid to play. No, her mother said. Her mama gets paid to host. Some people just born into applause. As Lydia vacuumed, Amira wandered through the living room. A framed photo caught her eye, a family smiling in front of a massive white columned home. She counted 4 stories. Ma, she said later, do people really live in places like this? Her mother laughed softly. Sure do. Some even complain about it. I'm gonna live in one someday, Amira said. A big one. Maybe even higher than this. Her mother turned off the vacuum. Then you better work higher than me. From that day, Amira chased blueprints instead of fairy tales. She filled every notebook she owned with sketches of towers, bridges, dream houses. When her cousins bragged about sneakers, she bragged about designs. But Southside schools weren't built for dreamers like her. In 10th grade, her art teacher, Mr. Kessler, leaned over her drafting table. Architecture, he said, half laughing. That's a hard field, sweetheart. Expensive. Technical. Competitive. You ever thought about interior decorating instead? Amira stared at him, her pencil frozen midline. No, sir. I want to build the house, not paint the walls. He smirked. Ambitious. But you'll need more than ambition. Those schools, Georgia Tech, MIT, they don't hand out scholarships to just anybody. Her stomach tightened. The word anybody had an undertone she knew too well. That night, she told her mother. He said I shouldn't bother applying. Lydia didn't look up from the ironing board. Then you bother anyway. So she did. Every night after her shift at the diner, Amira studied blueprints on her cracked laptop screen, tracing designs from free tutorials. Sometimes she'd fall asleep on her desk, the glow of her screen painting soft light over her exhausted face. One stormy evening, the lights went out. Rain slammed against the window. Lydia lit a candle and sat beside her. What you drawing this time? Amira smiled faintly. A building where everyone can walk in proud. No one asked to leave. No one told they don't belong. Lydia reached over, touching the page like it was holy. Then that's the one, baby. That's your dream. When college application season came, Amira sent out 6 envelopes, each sealed with hope, fear, and the weight of 1,000 unspoken prayers. Weeks passed. Then months. Bills stacked. Lydia worked longer hours. The smell of bleach became the smell of worry. Then one morning, the mail arrived. A thick envelope from Georgia Tech. Her heart raced as she tore it open, only to find the first word in bold, unfortunately. Her world shrank. The letters blurred. Her mother stood frozen at the sink. They said no, Amira whispered. Lydia's jaw trembled, but she stayed calm. Then they missed out. Amira dropped the letter to the floor and walked outside, rain still falling from the night before. The neighborhood looked smaller than ever. Houses leaning, paint peeling, dreams shrinking in the puddles. She stared at the sky. It felt cruel that something so wide could belong to everyone and still feel so far away. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old apartment reminded her of that single word. Unfortunately. At 3 a.m., she gave up trying. She sat at her desk, tracing over one of her drawings, a tower that reached the clouds. Tears hit the paper, blurring her lines. I'll never get there, she whispered to no one. The clock ticked. Outside, the streetlight flickered, once, twice, and then went out completely. A knock came at the door. Lydia stirred in her sleep. Amira? You okay? Yeah, Ma, she said quickly, wiping her face. Just heard something. She opened the door slowly. The hallway was empty. Only silence and shadows. But on the floor, right at her feet, lay a white envelope. No return address. Her name written in perfect cursive. She looked down the hall again. Nothing. Just the hum of the old air vent. Hands trembling, she picked it up. Who would drop mail this late? She whispered. Inside was a single line typed on thick paper. Dreams don't die in rejection letters, only in silence. And beneath it, a stamp from the Evelyn Hartman Foundation for Women in Architecture. Her heart thudded so loud she thought her mother might hear. The next morning, Amira would discover what that envelope truly meant, and how it would change the course of her life forever. Have you ever had someone tell you your dream was too big for you? Tell me in the comments. Did you give up? Or did you fight anyway? Morning sunlight sliced through the blinds, painting gold stripes across the apartment walls. The envelope from last night still sat on Amira's desk, untouched except for the tear she'd made in its corner. Her mother leaned over her shoulder, eyes full of confusion and hope. What's it say, baby? Lydia asked softly, clutching her apron like it was a prayer. Amira unfolded the thick paper with shaking hands. Her eyes skimmed the words once, then again, as if they might vanish if she blinked too long. The Evelyn Hartman Foundation is pleased to offer you a full academic scholarship to the Georgia Institute of Technology, School of Architecture. She read it aloud, voice trembling on the word full. Lydia covered her mouth. Tears spilled before words could. Full. Amira nodded, laughing and crying all at once. Full. Tuition, housing, books, everything. Her mother collapsed onto the couch, crying into her palms. Lord, I told you. I told you she was meant for more. Amira just stood there, stunned. The rejection letter from yesterday still lay on the floor, crumpled and broken. Now, another letter. This one opening a door she thought was sealed forever. She didn't know who Evelyn Hartman was. She didn't know why someone like her would choose a girl from Southside. But she didn't care. That fall, Amira stepped onto Georgia Tech's campus with 2 suitcases, a scholarship letter, and a heart that beat louder than her fear. The buildings towered over her like glass giants. Everyone seemed to know exactly where to go, what to wear, how to belong. She didn't. During orientation, a tall blonde boy glanced at her name badge. Brooks, he? Architecture major. He smirked. Diversity pick. The words hit harder than he probably meant them to. I'm here on scholarship, she said evenly. Yeah, he laughed. So am I, for rowing. His friends chuckled. The joke wasn't funny, but no one stopped him. That was Amira's first lesson. On some floors, the elevator doors opened slower for people like her. Classes were brutal. Blueprints, math, physics, late nights that melted into early mornings. But every time she wanted to quit, she heard her mother's voice, then you bother anyway. So she bothered, harder than anyone. By her second semester, she was working 2 jobs, one at the campus library, another cleaning an off-campus law office after dark. She'd come home at 3 a.m., collapse on her bed, and wake again at 7 for her first class. Coffee became more blood than beverage. One night, she fell asleep at her drafting table. When she woke, someone had placed a blanket over her shoulders. A man's voice came from the doorway. You're going to burn out before you build anything. It was Professor Alcott. Late 50s, wire-rimmed glasses, silver beard. He was known for being ruthless but brilliant. The kind of professor who tore your design apart only to make you build it better. I'm fine, Amira mumbled. No, he said gently, you're determined. There's a difference. He walked closer, eyeing her sketches. Who taught you line discipline? No one, she said. I learned from online tutorials. He chuckled softly. Well, the internet has good taste. He studied one of her drawings, a curved structure shaped like open hands. What's this? A community center, she said. For people who don't feel welcome anywhere. His eyes lingered on the design. You're not designing buildings, Miss Brooks. You're designing belonging. She smiled, unsure what to say. From that day, he became her quiet mentor. He'd leave notes on her desk like breadcrumbs, refine the curve, or beauty is nothing without purpose. He taught her to see architecture not as walls and floors, but as human emotion cast in concrete. But not everyone saw her that way. In one studio critique, her classmates presented before her, all applause and easy praise. When it was her turn, the same professor who'd complimented them tore her apart. Your proportions are wrong. Your concept is idealistic. You can't just design from emotion, Miss Brooks. Amira swallowed hard, her chest tight. The blonde boy from orientation leaned back in his chair and whispered just loud enough. Told you, quota spots don't last long. The room laughed. She packed her sketchbook and left before the tears came. She didn't go back for 2 days. When she did, Professor Alcott was waiting outside the studio. You missed critique review. I know, she said, avoiding his eyes. Do you want to build for applause, he asked quietly, or for people who've never been applauded? That question lived in her bones. Through her junior and senior years, Amira became unstoppable. Her designs won student awards. Her name appeared in architecture journals. Still, she stayed humble, remembering her mother's scraped hands and every floor they'd scrubbed. One rainy afternoon, she found Professor Alcott in his office surrounded by old blueprints and coffee cups. He looked tired, weaker than usual. You all right? She asked. He smiled faintly. Just old bones arguing with gravity. She laughed, but something in his voice felt final. He handed her a thin envelope sealed with wax. "For when they try to break you," he said. "What is it?" "Not yet." Before she could argue, he waved her off. "Go. The world's waiting to be rebuilt." She left his office thinking she'd see him the next morning. She didn't. The next day, the dean made the announcement. Professor Alcott had passed away overnight, a sudden heart attack. The words hit her like falling glass. She sat in her dorm room, the sealed envelope on her desk, her reflection trembling in the window. She couldn't bring herself to open it. Not yet. Outside, the city lights flickered, the same rhythm as the South Side street lamps. And for a moment, it all came full circle. She whispered to the night, "You said not yet, Professor. So I'll wait, until they try." She had no idea how soon that moment would come, or how that sealed letter would become the weapon that saved her life. Graduation day felt unreal. Rows of blue caps, cheers that echoed like thunder, and sunlight bouncing off glass buildings Amira once thought she'd only admire from afar. Her mother sat in the audience, tears glistening, holding a sign that read "From Southside to Skyline." As Amira tossed her cap into the air, she thought of Professor Alcott, of the envelope still unopened, sitting safely in her drawer. "For when they try to break you." The words whispered through her mind like prophecy. 2 months later, the email arrived. "We are pleased to offer you a junior architect position at Henderson and Vale Architects, Atlanta Division." Amira froze. Henderson and Vale, the same firm that had ignored her internship application 3 years earlier. The same one that symbolized everything elite and unreachable. When she told her mother, Lydia nearly screamed. "Girl, that's one of the biggest firms in the country." "I know," Amira said, smiling nervously. "Let's just hope they remember that I belong there." The first day was a movie. The lobby was marble and chrome, the kind that reflected ambition and hid exhaustion. The employees looked like they'd stepped out of a lifestyle magazine. Tailored suits, designer coffee cups, eyes that measured before they greeted. Daniel Vale, the firm's co-founder, was waiting at the end of the hallway. Late 40s, sharp jaw, silk tie that whispered authority. His handshake was firm but cold. "Miss Brooks," he said, "I've read your portfolio. Interesting concepts." "Thank you," she replied, voice steady. He gestured toward her workstation, a sleek corner desk near the window, overlooking downtown Atlanta. "We value creativity here, but we also value discipline. Think you can balance both?" "I've had practice," she said. He gave a thin smile. "We'll see." The first few months were grueling but electric. Amira worked late nights, often the last one in the office. Her designs weren't just buildings, they were stories in steel. The Harborlight Community Center she drafted became the talk of the firm. Colleagues whispered that she had the eye. Then came the small things, the subtle erasures. When her sketches were printed for presentations, her signature line, "A. Brooks," vanished from the corner. Her name disappeared from internal emails. Once, during a team review, Daniel presented her concept as a collaborative design inspired by the firm's vision. At first, she told herself it was normal, the way the industry worked. She was new. She had to prove herself. But then it happened again. And again. Her assistant, Jenna, a sharp, sarcastic white woman with a heart too big for her filter, noticed. "You ever realize how your ideas mysteriously become our ideas?" she asked one evening while Amira packed her laptop. Amira forced a laugh. "It's fine. Talent speaks eventually." "Yeah," Jenna said, "but it whispers while they're shouting your credit." Amira didn't answer. She couldn't afford to look bitter. Instead, she poured herself into the next project, the Graceview Tower. Her design blended modern glass with recycled stone from historic Atlanta buildings. It symbolized unity, old meeting new, Black history meeting modern progress. When Daniel saw the renderings, he paused longer than usual. "It's striking," he admitted. "We'll present it under the firm's portfolio next month." Her chest filled with pride. "Thank you, sir." But that pride didn't last. At the next client meeting, Daniel spoke over her. Every question directed to Amira was redirected through him. "We wanted to capture a sense of legacy," he'd say, never once saying she. Amira smiled through it, swallowing the rage that clawed her throat. She needed her foot in the door. Not a scene. Then came December, the year-end gala. Gold lights shimmered across the ballroom, champagne glasses clinked, and names of nominees flashed across a massive LED screen. When Graceview Tower was announced as a finalist for Design of the Year, Jenna squeezed Amira's hand under the table. "That's you," she whispered. Amira shook her head. "It's us." The announcer's voice echoed, and the award for Design of the Year goes to Henderson and Vale Architects for Graceview Tower. Applause erupted. Amira froze, heart pounding. Daniel Vale rose from the table, straightening his tie, smiling for the cameras. "Daniel," she started, but he was already walking to the stage. The spotlight followed him. Reporters snapped photos. He took the golden plaque and the microphone like he'd rehearsed this moment his whole life. "I'd like to thank our incredible team," he began. "Especially my assistant, Amira Brooks, whose dedication made this project possible." Her stomach dropped. "Assistant?" Jenna gasped beside her. "Did he just?" "He did," Amira whispered. Cameras flashed. People clapped. Daniel basked in it all. Her name rippled through the room only as background noise. He looked down at her from the stage, smiling the kind of smile that dared her to ruin the show. Amira smiled back, polite, frozen, dying inside. When the applause faded, she excused herself. The hallway outside was quiet except for the hum of the lights. She leaned against the wall, eyes burning. "I built that tower." She whispered the words like a secret no one would ever believe. Jenna found her minutes later, breathless. "You can't let him get away with that." Amira shook her head. "This isn't the time." "When is the time, Amira?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Back inside, Daniel toasted champagne with the mayor and journalists. The cameras loved him. But as he turned for another photo, Jenna, hands shaking, lifted her phone. One snap. Then another. Then a video. Daniel, holding the award, saying the words again, "My assistant, Amira Brooks." Her assistant. The video went online before midnight. By morning, it had over 2 million views. "Black woman architect erased from her own design." The headline burned across every feed. Reporters called. Protesters tweeted. The firm went silent. At 9 a.m., Daniel Vale summoned Amira to his office. He sat behind his glass desk, the golden plaque on the shelf behind him. "You've embarrassed this firm," he said. She blinked. "I embarrassed you." "Public perception matters more than truth," he said coolly. "Take a few weeks off. We'll handle the narrative." Her voice broke through the silence. "The narrative is mine." Daniel leaned back, smiling like a man who'd never been challenged. "Not anymore." As she turned to leave, Jenna met her in the hall, eyes wide. "You're trending. Everyone's talking about it. He can't bury this." Amira's phone buzzed non-stop, messages, mentions, outrage. But then came the call. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. "Miss Brooks?" a calm, older voice said. "Yes." "You don't know me, but I'm your donor." Amira froze. The world around her went silent. "I'm Evelyn Hartman," the voice continued. "And it's time we met. If someone stole your hard work and smiled while doing it, what would you do? Comment I'd fight back if you'd stand up. Or tell me how you'd make them pay." The office felt colder that morning, not the air, but the eyes. Every head that turned toward Amira carried a mix of curiosity and fear. The hallway screens still displayed the Graceview Tower Award image, Daniel Vale's smiling face next to her design. Except now, there was something new beneath it, a small headline scrolling across the news bar. Viral video sparks outrage. Architect claims credit for black employees' design. Amira could feel the stares pressing against her skin. Every click of a keyboard stopped when she walked by. Jenna rushed to meet her by the elevators, eyes wide. "They're trying to control the damage." Daniel's doing interviews. Interviews. His saying it was all a misunderstanding. That you were part of a team effort. Amira's jaw tightened. Team effort. Right. Inside the boardroom, Daniel sat with PR executives. His tone was calm, rehearsed. We value diversity and inclusion at Henderson and Vale, he said into the camera, perfectly lit. Ms. Brooks is an important part of our design team. This isn't about credit, it's about collaboration. Collaboration. The word tasted bitter in her mouth. When he noticed her standing in the doorway, his expression didn't change. Ah, Amira, he said smoothly. Come in. We were just discussing next steps. She walked in slowly. Next steps for what? Cleaning up your lie. The PR woman's smile faltered. Miss Brooks, perhaps we can handle this privately. No, Amira said. You made it public. Daniel's smile stiffened. You're upset. I understand. But you're not seeing the bigger picture. The firm's reputation. My reputation, she cut in, voice trembling with rage, is the only one you're worried about burying. He leaned back in his chair. I suggest you be careful with your words. You're still on probation here. Probation? She laughed incredulously. For what? Being the wrong color to take credit for my own work. The room went silent. Daniel's tone hardened. You're emotional. Take some time off. We'll conduct an internal review. An internal review. Jenna repeated, stepping forward. That's code for let it die quietly. Security entered the room before Amira could respond. Daniel gave them a small nod. Escort Miss Brooks out until this matter is resolved. The guards hesitated. They didn't look comfortable. But orders were orders. Amira grabbed her laptop and walked out, shoulders squared, pulse pounding. She could feel her career slipping away with each step. Outside, the sky was gray, the kind of color that sits between storm and surrender. Reporters were already waiting near the front steps, cameras flashing like lightning. Miss Brooks, is it true you designed Graceview Tower? Do you plan to sue? Did Mr. Vale steal your work? Amira kept walking. Each question cut deeper than the last. When she reached the parking lot, she finally let herself breathe. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely fit the key into her car door. Her phone buzzed. Hundreds of notifications. Messages from strangers. Queen, we see you. Don't let them silence you. #Stand with Amira is trending. Her throat tightened. Somewhere between the humiliation and rage, she felt something new stirring, something fierce. That night, her face filled every news feed. Talk shows debated her story. Hashtags flooded timelines. Commentators argued whether she was overreacting or exposing real systemic bias. But the firm wasn't quiet. Henderson and Vale released an official statement. Amira Brooks has been placed on temporary leave pending an internal investigation. The firm remains committed to integrity and equality. Integrity. The word made her laugh out loud. Jenna showed up at her apartment with takeout and 2 phones. You're not going to believe this, she said. Daniel's calling you ungrateful. He said he gave you opportunities you wouldn't have had elsewhere. Amira felt the heat rise up her neck. Ungrateful. Jenna nodded grimly. They're already scrubbing your name from the company site. They even replaced your email signature with design intern. For a long moment, Amira said nothing. She just stared at her sketchbook, the one filled with her dream projects. I worked for years, she whispered. Cleaned floors, skipped meals, studied until sunrise. And the first time I touch success, they call it charity. Jenna's eyes softened. So what are you gonna do? Amira looked up, her voice steady. Fight, but not like them. That night, she recorded a short video, just her, sitting at her desk, blueprints in the background. My name is Amira Brooks, she said. I built Graceview Tower, every inch, every curve, every beam of light. They tried to erase me, but this is my story. The video went viral within hours. Celebrities reposted it. Black architects around the country shared their own experiences. The story became a movement. By morning, protests gathered outside Henderson and Vale's glass doors. Signs read "Credit the Creator" and "Justice for Amira." Daniel Vale appeared on TV again, smirking through questions. "We're proud of Amira," he said smoothly. But sometimes talented people let emotions cloud professionalism. Amira stared at the screen, fists clenched. "Professionalism," she muttered. "That's what they call silence." The backlash didn't stop. Sponsors pulled funding. Clients threatened to leave. The firm started to crumble under the weight of its own lies. Still, Amira felt no joy, only exhaustion. The kind that seeps into your bones after fighting too long to be believed. Late that night, after hours of scrolling through messages of both support and hate, her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something, maybe instinct, made her answer. "Hello." A calm, older woman's voice came through the line. "Miss Brooks." "Yes. Who is this?" "You don't know me," the woman said. "But I'm your donor." Amira sat up straight, heart racing. "My donor." There was a pause, gentle but firm. "My name is Evelyn Hartman. I funded your scholarship. And now I need to see you. Tonight." Amira blinked. "Tonight? Before they take everything from you." The line went dead. Her apartment felt suddenly colder. The city lights outside flickered, reflected in the window like a warning. She looked down at the unopened letter Professor Alcott had given her, "For when they try to break you." Maybe that time had come. The rain came down in silver sheets, slicing through Atlanta's night sky. Amira gripped the steering wheel tighter, headlights flashing against empty streets. She kept checking her GPS, each turn pulling her further away from the city, closer to a story she didn't yet understand. The voice on the phone still echoed in her head. "Before they take everything from you." An hour later, the road curved toward a gated estate. The sign on the mailbox read Hartman House. She rolled down her window, water splashing her arm as she pressed the intercom button. A crackling voice answered. "Miss Brooks." "Yes," she said, heart pounding. "Drive straight up. She's expecting you." The gates opened slowly, like the beginning of something sacred. The mansion appeared through the trees, a sprawling structure of white stone and ivy, lit softly from within. It looked like something pulled from a dream. Or maybe a memory. A woman waited under the porch light. Her silver hair was pinned in a loose bun, her frame slender but strong, wrapped in a beige shawl. "Evelyn Hartman." "Come in before you drown," Evelyn said, voice warm but commanding. Inside, the air smelled of cedar and coffee. Every wall was lined with blueprints, framed like art. Amira's eyes widened as she noticed the dates: 1963, 1971, 1985. Each stamped with E. Hartman, lead architect. "You were," Amira began. "An architect," Evelyn finished. "Before they let women call themselves that." Amira followed her into a study filled with old drafting tables and awards coated in dust. Evelyn moved like someone who'd carried history too long and learned not to drop it. "I remember your application," Evelyn said, pouring tea. "You were the first Southside girl to send in a portfolio that looked like purpose, not pity." Amira blinked. "You were the one who gave me the scholarship." "I was the one who fought the board to approve it," Evelyn said. "They said your background would reflect poorly on the foundation." Amira's chest tightened. "Why fight for me?" Evelyn sat across from her, eyes sharp and kind all at once. "Because I was you, 50 years ago." Amira leaned forward. "You faced racism too." Evelyn smiled faintly. "Not racism, but the same disease. Disbelief." She reached for a framed black and white photo on the table. In it, a young Evelyn stood among a group of men in suits, her smile tight, her name missing from the project plaque behind them. "They erased me before you were even born," she said. "I designed the Ridgeview Library in 1967. They said it was too bold for a woman. When it won an award, my boss accepted it. He called me his assistant. Sound familiar? Amira exhaled sharply. Exactly. I spent decades begging for a seat at their table, Evelyn continued. Then one day, I realized the table wasn't the problem. The room was. Amira frowned. So what did you do? I built my own. She gestured around the study. Every photo showed buildings with her signature style, open curves, light-filled atriums, spaces meant to invite, not impress. I started Hartman Designs, she said. Hired the women they wouldn't. Trained the ones they ignored. For a while, we changed things. Until the money ran out, and the world forgot. Amira swallowed hard. Why tell me this now? Evelyn leaned forward, her voice turning steel. Because history's repeating itself. You're fighting the same war I fought, but louder, faster, and with cameras watching. Amira looked down at her tea, her hands trembling. They've already destroyed my career. I'm blacklisted. No firm will touch me now. Evelyn smiled. Good. Now you're finally free. Free. You'll never change the system by begging to sit at their table, Amira. Her eyes burned bright, fierce. Build your own tower. The words hit like thunder. Evelyn rose from her chair, motioning for Amira to follow. They walked through a long hallway lined with architectural sketches. At the end, Evelyn stopped before a wooden chest. She unlocked it, pulling out a folder bound in red ribbon. She placed it in Amira's hands. This belonged to my husband. He was a lawyer for Henderson and Vale before he died. I've kept quiet long enough. Amira hesitated. What is this? Property deeds. Records. Proof of who owns what. And one particular building they've been using to hide their corruption for decades. Evelyn unfolded the top sheet. The address made Amira's breath catch. Graceview Penthouse, 211, Auburn Avenue. Amira stared at her. That's Daniel's property. His firm's showpiece. Not anymore, Evelyn said. It's yours. What? I bought it years ago under a shell company. It's been empty since 2012. Henderson and Vale leased it from my estate, but they defaulted on the contract. I never reclaimed it because I was waiting for someone who'd know what to do with it. Amira's throat went dry. You're giving me a building? Evelyn nodded. A symbol. Start here. Redesign it. Reclaim it. Make it the kind of place where no one's ever told they don't belong. Amira's fingers brushed over the deed, disbelief flickering across her face. Why me? She whispered. Evelyn smiled gently. Because you remind me that maybe I didn't lose. Maybe I was just paving the road. Amira's chest tightened. She wanted to cry but didn't. Evelyn, I don't have investors. I don't have a team. I don't even have a reputation anymore. You have a story, Evelyn said. And stories build empires faster than money. They stood in silence for a moment, thunder rumbling in the distance. Then Evelyn placed a small brass key in Amira's hand. It was old, heavy, engraved with an H. That's the key to the penthouse, she said. Don't waste it trying to fit in. Amira looked down at the key, its weight pressing into her palm like destiny. I don't know if I'm ready, she admitted. No one ever is, Evelyn said softly. But the city is. When Amira stepped back into the rain, she felt different. Reborn and raw all at once. The wind cut through her coat, but she barely felt it. The key glowed in her hand beneath the lightning. The skyline of Atlanta shimmered in the distance, and one tower caught her eye. Graceview. The same place Daniel Vale had humiliated her. Now, it was hers. But as her car pulled away from the estate, headlights appeared behind her. 2, then 4. A black SUV trailing close, too close. She checked her mirror. The SUV didn't slow. And that's when her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You shouldn't have met her. The next morning, sunlight slipped through Amira's blinds, catching on the brass key beside her bed. She stared at it like it might disappear if she blinked too long. Evelyn Hartman's words echoed in her head, don't waste it trying to fit in. By 9 a.m., She was standing inside the penthouse again. The same lobby where Daniel Vale had humiliated her. Only this time, she didn't flinch. The walls that once whispered rejection now felt like blank pages. "This isn't just a building anymore," she said quietly. "It's proof." Jenna, clipboard in hand, grinned. "Proof of what?" "That we can build something they can't destroy." Together, they began sketching plans. Amira envisioned transforming the luxury tower into Graceview Living, a community for working-class families, young professionals, and single mothers like her own. It wouldn't be about status. It would be about belonging. Affordable luxury, she explained during the first investor pitch. Spaces that remind people they deserve beauty, too. The investors nodded politely, but Amira could feel the hesitation in their eyes. The quiet question they didn't say aloud. Can a black woman pull this off? She refused to answer with words. She answered with vision. Weeks turned into months. Blueprints filled her office walls. She hired a small, diverse team, former classmates, single mothers, a retired builder from Southside named Leon who called her boss lady with a grin that warmed her heart. The press began to take notice. Headlines shifted from scandal to inspiration. Disgraced architect rebuilds hope. From betrayal to blueprints, Amira Brooks' second act. Every interview ended with the same quote, "I'm not rebuilding my name. I'm rebuilding trust." But Daniel Vale wasn't done with her. Rumors began to spread, whispered at City Hall, murmured through contractors' networks. "She's inexperienced. Her permits aren't real. She's laundering Evelyn Hartman's money." Within weeks, 3 investors backed out. One emailed her apology directly, "Love your vision. Can't afford the risk." Amira slammed her laptop shut, fury mixing with panic. "He's poisoning everything," she told Jenna. "Every door I open, he's already behind it." "Then we build a door he doesn't own," Jenna said. Amira took a deep breath. "Fine. No more investors. We'll crowdfund it." They launched a campaign video showing the project's mission. Clips of workers laying bricks, families touring model rooms, kids laughing on unfinished stairwells. Within 48 hours, donations poured in. Local businesses offered supplies. Churches volunteered manpower. The Southside community that once doubted her now called her our Amira. One evening, while walking the site, Leon pointed toward the skyline. "You see that tower up there?" he said. "That's where he lives, right?" Amira nodded. "Funny thing," Leon said. "From down here, his tower don't look so tall." That night, Amira stood on the half-finished balcony, looking out at the glittering city lights. For the first time in months, she felt peace, not the quiet kind, but the grounded kind. The building rose quickly. Hallways that once smelled of dust began to smell of paint and hope. Each apartment felt like a small victory. She worked late into the night, sketching changes, balancing budgets, laughing with her crew. Even when the exhaustion hit, she pushed through, because this time, she wasn't just fighting for herself. One afternoon, a TV reporter visited the site. "Miss Brooks," she said, "people are calling Graceview the comeback story of the year. How does it feel?" Amira smiled. "It feels like coming home to a place that didn't exist, so I built it." The video went viral. Donations doubled. By fall, Graceview was weeks from its grand opening. The banners were printed, the ribbon ordered, the mayor scheduled to attend. Even Evelyn, frail but fiery, promised to come. "I wouldn't miss watching you break a system or a champagne bottle," she said over the phone, chuckling. Everything felt ready, until the day the inspectors came. It was supposed to be a routine walkthrough. 2 men in grey jackets with city badges and unreadable faces. They walked the site slowly, clipboards tapping, eyes sharp. Amira greeted them with coffee and confidence. "All systems are up to code. Our engineers' report cleared last week." One of the inspectors frowned. "Funny, because we found irregularities in your electrical documentation." Amira blinked. "Irregularities? That's impossible." He pulled out a folder. "According to our database, You signed off on faulty materials from a restricted supplier. That's a Class B safety violation. She froze. I never signed anything like that. He turned the paper around. Her signature glared up from the page. Perfect, practiced, forged. That's not mine, she said immediately. It's on record, the man replied. Until we verify, we're issuing a stop work order. Jenna stepped forward. You can't just shut down a whole project without investigation. The inspector sighed. We can when public safety's at risk. Effective immediately, this site is closed. They taped the red notice across the entrance. Condemned pending review. Workers stopped mid-task, staring in disbelief. Leon pulled off his hard hat. Boss lady, what's going on? Amira stood silent, rage and fear warring inside her. Her dream, her redemption, locked behind caution tape. She looked closer at the forged signature. Her name wasn't just copied. It was copied from a specific document, one that only Henderson and Vale would have had access to. Daniel. The thought hit like lightning. That night, Amira sat alone in the darkened office, the red notice glowing faintly under the streetlight outside. Her phone buzzed non-stop, reporters asking for statements, investors panicking again. She ignored them all. Instead, she opened the drawer and pulled out Professor Alcott's envelope, the one she'd kept sealed all these years. Her hands trembled as she broke the wax seal. Inside was a single line, handwritten in his familiar script. When they use your name to bury you, use the truth to build higher. Beneath the letter was a small flash drive. Amira plugged it into her laptop. The screen flickered, then filled with folders. Internal documents, old blueprints, contracts from Henderson and Vale. Dozens of them, all marked confidential. Her breath caught. These weren't just blueprints. They were evidence. Evidence that could destroy Daniel Vale. The cursor blinked on the screen like a heartbeat. And somewhere outside, a car engine idled too long beneath her window. Morning broke without mercy. Blue lights painted Amira's windows before she even realized they were there. Sirens screamed through the dawn, bouncing off the steel frame of Graceview Tower like echoes of accusation. She stumbled to the door in her robe, heart pounding. Through the peephole, 2 police officers. One held a warrant, the other a grim expression. Miss Brooks, the taller one said. You're under arrest for falsifying building permits and endangering public safety. Her voice cracked. What? That's impossible. Please step outside. The hallway swarmed with neighbors and workers she'd inspired only days before. Someone whispered, "That's her." Someone else raised a phone. Jenna appeared at the elevator, barefoot, clutching her phone. Wait, there's been a mistake. But the cuffs were already on. Cold steel kissed Amira's wrists. As the officers led her out, she caught her reflection in the lobby glass. The same woman who'd once stood proud, now reflected in blue light and disbelief. Outside, reporters surrounded her like vultures. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward. Miss Brooks, did you falsify documents to rush construction? Was your mentor part of the fraud? Did you scam the city for profit? She couldn't answer, couldn't breathe, couldn't understand how her name, the one she'd fought to build, was now dragging headlines through mud. By afternoon, her mugshot was everywhere. Architect turned fraud, Graceview project halted amid scandal. Her mother called from Atlanta General, voice trembling. Baby, what's happening? They're saying things that don't sound like you. I don't know, Ma, Amira whispered, sitting in the interrogation room. I don't know. Daniel Vale's smile appeared on TV that night, calm as a preacher. It's tragic, he said. We had high hopes for Miss Brooks. But we can't control everyone's ethics. The word ethics nearly shattered her. When Jenna came to see her, her hair was a mess and her eyes red from crying. They planted everything, she said. I checked the city logs, those forged permits. They were uploaded from Henderson and Vale's internal server. Amira stared blankly at the table. Then show the police. I did, Jenna said. They said it's circumstantial. Without physical proof linking it to Daniel, the court won't admit it. Amira's chest tightened. They already decided I'm guilty. Jenna slammed her palm on the table. Then we'll make them regret it. 2 days later, Amira stood in court. The room was packed, reporters, strangers, even city officials pretending not to stare. Her lawyer, overworked and underpaid, whispered, "They're pushing for maximum sentence, 3 years. 3 years for something I didn't do," she hissed. He adjusted his glasses. "They say public trust was violated. That's politics, not justice." Across the aisle, Daniel Vale sat in the front row, perfect suit, faint smirk. He nodded at her like this was business, like he was congratulating her for being predictable. When her turn came to speak, Amira rose slowly. "I didn't forge anything," she said, voice shaking. "I built Graceview to give people hope. People like my mother, who cleaned houses in neighborhoods she couldn't afford to live in. I built it because I believed in this city." The judge didn't blink. "Miss Brooks, facts outweigh intentions. Until proven otherwise, you remain responsible." Behind her, Evelyn Hartman gripped her cane tighter. She had refused to miss a single hearing despite her age. As court adjourned, reporters swarmed again. Evelyn tried to shield Amira, but the crowd pressed too close. The old woman stumbled. "Evelyn." Amira cried, rushing forward as she collapsed onto the marble floor. Paramedics arrived within minutes. The hallway turned into chaos. Evelyn's hand found Amira's, weak but firm. "Don't let them win," she whispered before they carried her away. Amira's heart broke quietly as she watched the ambulance lights fade. That night, in her holding cell, the world felt smaller than ever. The concrete walls hummed with silence. The sound of her mother's prayers echoed in her head. "God, if you see her, don't let her lose herself." She sat on the floor, back against the wall, staring at the city lights bleeding through the tiny window. The skyline she once dreamed of designing now looked like a cage. When Jenna visited again, she carried a folder full of printouts. They tampered with the financial records too. "Look, Daniel's initials appear on 3 transfers tied to the forged documents." Amira scanned the pages. "Why isn't this enough?" "Because the judge won't allow new evidence this late in the process. They've closed the review window." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to cry. "So that's it? He wins?" "Not yet," Jenna said softly. "You still have one thing left." Amira frowned. "What?" "The letter," Jenna said. "From Professor Alcott. You told me you still had it, right?" Amira hesitated. "I already opened it. It said, 'Use the truth to build higher.' And there was a flash drive." Jenna's eyes widened. "What's on it?" "I don't know. I haven't had a computer since they took my stuff." Jenna reached across the table. "Then as soon as you're out, we find out." But the next morning, everything changed. The judge announced sentencing for the following week. Amira's bail appeal was denied. The headlines turned harsher: "Architect or con artist? The fall of Amira Brooks." Her supporters dwindled. Sponsors withdrew. The same city she'd wanted to rebuild now wanted to forget her. That night, the guards dimmed the lights. The cell grew silent except for the rain tapping against the bars. Amira pulled the folded letter from her pocket again. She read Professor Alcott's handwriting one more time. "When they use your name to bury you, use the truth to build higher." Her fingers brushed against the small flash drive taped to the bottom. She hadn't noticed it before. Written in tiny block letters were 4 words: "The truth about Henderson and Vale." Her breath caught. Could this be what he'd meant all along? Outside her window, lightning illuminated the city skyline, and for the first time in weeks, she felt something stir again. Not fear. Fire. Morning light slipped through the bars, slicing through the gray of the cell. Amira sat on her bunk, the flash drive clenched in her hand like a secret weapon. It felt warm, alive, like it was waiting for her to decide whether to save herself or the world that broke her. By the time her lawyer arrived, she had already made her choice. "Can you get this to Jenna?" she asked, sliding the small device across the table. "It's from my professor. He left it for a reason." The lawyer frowned. "Miss Brooks, the court won't allow new evidence." "I don't need the court," she said quietly. "I just need the truth to be seen." That afternoon, Jenna plugged the drive into her laptop inside the newsroom cafe where she'd been camped for days. The files unfolded like a confession. Blueprints, invoices, emails, hidden documents from Henderson and Vale's private servers. Every file told the same story: years of stolen designs, young architects, especially women and people of color, whose ideas were erased and resold. Daniel Vale's name appeared again and again, signing off on forged drawings, redirecting credit, manipulating city contracts. At the bottom of one folder, Jenna found a letter from Professor Alcott addressed to the architect they tried to erase. "If you're reading this, they've done it again. Don't fight for your seat. Flip the table." Jenna's hands trembled. She grabbed her phone, took a deep breath, and hit upload. Within an hour, the internet caught fire. #The Truth Blueprint, #Justice for Amira. News anchors broke the story live. Screens filled with side-by-side images, Amira's award-winning designs beside identical ones signed by Daniel Vale. "The evidence is overwhelming," one anchor said. "This isn't a scandal. It's a legacy of theft." Crowds gathered outside the courthouse by sunset. Protesters held signs that read "Let her build and credit the creator." Inside her cell, Amira could hear the chants through the walls. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. The next morning, the guards escorted her to court. The hall was chaos: reporters, cameras, people shouting her name. Jenna ran to her, breathless, eyes wild with excitement. "It worked," she whispered. "They can't ignore it anymore. Every major outlet has the files. The state's opening an inquiry into Henderson and Vale." Amira felt her knees go weak. "You did it." "No," Jenna said, squeezing her hand. "We did." The courtroom was packed. Daniel Vale sat across the aisle, his perfect posture gone, dark circles shadowing his eyes. His lawyer leaned in, whispering frantic damage control. The judge entered, her expression unreadable. "Before we begin sentencing, new evidence has come to light," she announced. "Evidence of systematic fraud within Henderson and Vale Architects." Gasps filled the room. The prosecutor stood. "Your Honor, these documents suggest Miss Brooks was not the perpetrator of fraud, but the victim." Daniel shot to his feet. "That evidence is stolen property." The judge slammed her gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Vale. You've stolen enough." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Cameras flashed like lightning. Jenna stepped forward with the drive. "Your Honor, this contains over 10 years of proof, signatures, bank transfers, stolen blueprints. Professor Alcott compiled it before his death." The judge reviewed the files briefly, her expression hardening. Then she looked at Amira. "Miss Brooks, it appears your name was forged, on documents, designs, and even charges." Amira swallowed, voice breaking. "I just wanted to build something good." "And you did," the judge said softly. "You built the truth." The courtroom erupted. Reporters bolted for the exits, eager to break the headline. Daniel Vale's face turned pale, his empire crumbling before everyone's eyes. That night, the news cycle looped a single image: Daniel being escorted from his office in handcuffs as smoke billowed from Henderson and Vale's downtown building. The firm had caught fire. Some said electrical, others said karma. Either way, it burned fast. Amira watched the footage from the steps of the courthouse, the same cameras that once called her a fraud now begging for interviews. "How does it feel to be free?" one reporter shouted. She looked at the crowd of supporters, people chanting her name, holding her designs high like banners. "It feels overdue," she said quietly. Jenna hugged her from behind, laughing through tears. "You did it, Amira. You really did it." Amira shook her head. "No. We did. Evelyn. Alcott. You. Everyone they ever erased." The mayor arrived moments later, offering his hand with an awkward smile. On behalf of the city, we'd like to extend. She cut him off gently. You can extend justice. That'll be enough. Reporters scribbled every word. Cameras zoomed in on her face, steady, fierce, unapologetic. When the crowd began to thin, Amira stepped aside for air. She looked up at the skyline, her skyline. The sun dipped behind the glass towers, painting the city gold. In the distance, her penthouse glowed, the same place she'd once been told she didn't belong. A reporter called out, "Miss Brooks, what's next for you?" She turned slowly, her reflection caught in every camera lens, her voice calm but certain. "What's next?" she repeated, eyes fixed on the building that started it all. "Home." The word rolled through the crowd like thunder, soft but final. Behind her, Jenna smiled through tears. "That's going viral in 5 minutes." Amira laughed, not out of triumph, but release. The fight was over. For now. The city lights flickered on one by one, until the skyline looked like a constellation of second chances. And for the first time in her life, Amira Brooks didn't feel like she was reaching for the stars. She was one. A year later, the city had changed, or maybe Amira had. The skyline glittered brighter now, not because the buildings were new, but because she finally saw herself in them. The air was alive with the buzz of anticipation. Grace Tower, her first completed project under her new company Brooks and Hartman Designs, stood tall in the heart of downtown Atlanta. Sleek glass and warm brick woven together like history and hope shaking hands. Crowds gathered outside the grand entrance, reporters, city officials, and families waiting to step inside the building that once symbolized her downfall. Evelyn Hartman's portrait hung in the lobby, eyes kind, smile sharp, the caption below reading, "The woman who built doors for others." Amira stood at the podium, microphone in hand. The mayor stood beside her, grinning with political polish. Cameras flashed. He raised a golden object and said, "Today, we celebrate not just architecture, but justice. Miss Amira Brooks, for redefining what this city can be, it's my honor to present you with the key to Atlanta." Applause thundered across the courtyard. As the mayor handed her the ceremonial key, Amira's mind flashed to the past. The marble lobby where they told her she didn't belong. The courtroom where they tried to bury her. The jail cell where truth finally found her. She exhaled slowly. "Thank you," she said into the mic, "but this key isn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who was ever told their dream was too big, too loud, or too brown." The crowd fell silent, listening. "I was told people like you don't live in penthouses." She paused, scanning the crowd. "Turns out, people like me build them." Cheers erupted, loud, long, defiant. Her mother cried in the front row, waving a small handkerchief. Jenna whistled from beside the stage, mouthing, "That's going viral." Amira smiled through tears. Grace Tower isn't just a building. It's a promise that no matter how high the walls, the sky still belongs to all of us. The ribbon cutting followed. Flashbulbs popped. Kids ran through the open glass doors, their laughter echoing through the hall where her humiliation once echoed instead. By evening, as the guests drifted away, Amira slipped into the elevator and pressed the button marked PH, Penthouse. The doors opened to the place that had started everything. The floors gleamed under the golden sunset, and the city stretched endlessly below her, her city. She walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, her reflection blending with the skyline. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, a familiar voice broke the quiet. "Miss Brooks." She turned. Standing at the door was a man in a concierge uniform. Older, balding slightly, his name tag read Peter. It took her a second to recognize him, the front desk manager from that night, the one who'd once sneered, "People like you don't live in penthouses." He looked nervous now, hat in hand. "Didn't realize it was you who owned the building now," he said softly. Amira studied him for a moment, not with anger, but with clarity. Time had already done the punishing. She stepped closer, her voice calm but powerful. "You were right," she said. "People like me didn't live here." He lowered his head. I She raised a hand gently, stopping him. But people like me built this place. And now, we make the rules. Silence filled the room, not awkward, but reverent. He nodded slowly. It's a beautiful building, Miss Brooks. You did good. Thank you, she said simply. I hope you like working here. When he left, Amira turned back toward the window. The skyline shimmered in the glass, the scars of her story hidden beneath the glow of her success. A soft chime sounded from her phone. A message from Jenna, news headline, "From Pain to Purpose, the woman who rebuilt Atlanta's heart." She smiled, tears threatening again. "From pain to purpose," she whispered. "That's exactly what this is." The night deepened. Lights flickered across the horizon, the city alive with movement and second chances. Amira walked to the balcony, the cool air brushing her face. Below her, the streets of Atlanta pulsed like veins, every light a story, every building a dream still in progress. She held the Golden City key in her palm, the same way she once held Evelyn's brass one. She lifted it toward the sky. "This is for you, Evelyn," she said softly. "For Professor Alcott. For every girl who ever looked up and thought she'd never belong up here." She smiled through the tears. "You do." Behind her, the lights of Grace Tower glowed brighter, forming a faint reflection on the glass that read like poetry across the skyline. "Grace lives here." The wind carried her whisper through the night. "We built this." And as she stood there, no longer the girl from the South Side, no longer the woman fighting for recognition, but a builder of belonging, the city finally looked like home. If you believe everyone deserves a seat at the table, or a key to their own penthouse, share this story. Because sometimes, the ones they try to lock out are the ones who build the door.